Hey guys, very good morning. Today we are going to discuss Mark chapter 13 verse 1 to 13 Bible study. Before starting our Bible study, we have to do one thing like we all are having Bibles, right? So we have to open that Bible and we have to read verse 1 to 13 twice or thrice so that we can understand these passages in an effective way. Find answers to the following questions to help you understand God's words in the word of life. If you check that passage, we can find answers for these questions. What are the common words used? Who is writing? Whom it is written to? When it was written? Why author is writing? Who is in the text of the given text? Is there any sin that I must confess? Is there any warning that I should head to? Is there any commandment that I have to obey? Is there any model for me to follow in that passage? Do I have any promise to own it from that passage? What is the main lesson that God has given me in this passage? So these kind of questions we can get answers from this passage. So now I am dividing this from verse 1 to 13, three subtopics. Two subtopics. The first one is verse 1 to 8, the near term signs of Jesus coming, and the second subtopic was 9 to 13, the need to be ready for the coming persecution. So these are the two subtopics now we are going to discuss. I hope you can understand. So the first subtopic we are discussing, the near term signs of Jesus coming, verse 1 to 8. Verse 1 to 8, we can prepare some discussion questions. So we are looking at first question, what is the significant about this time that Jesus left the temple? It would be for the last time. The second question we can prepare, how did his disciples feel about this temple? Third question, what was the temple actually like? Fourth question, how did Jesus feel about this temple? Why did he highlight its coming destruction? And fifth question, when will what things be? We can look at verse 4, we can understand this question. And next question, when would the signs in verse 5 to 8 take place? What would they be a sign of? Have they happened yet? Are they still happening? The last question we can prepare for 1 to 8 verse, what do you think is the main point Jesus wants his disciple to get by sharing these signs? So these are the questions we can prepare for this passage. I think we can look at some statement like Jesus departed from the temple, ending his public ministry after teaching his last public sermon, where we can look at Matthew chapter 24 verse 1 also. Now we are discussing verse by verse. The first one is, Jesus was going out of the temple. Yes. In chapter 12, Jesus gave a lot of public teaching. Most of it was focused on the hypocrisy and emptiness of the religious leaders specifically, and therefore all the Judaism by extension. The religion had become ritualistic and external, a system of good works motivated by corrupted hearts. It had no power to regenerate or transform hearts. This marks the end of the Jesus public teaching ministry. All the rest of his teaching would be done in private to his disciples. Was Jesus' public teaching fruitful? How fruitful? Did a revival begin sweeping through the country and bringing the nation to its knees? What lesson can we learn from Jesus' public teaching ministry that we can apply to our own teaching in the modern world? The second one, what wonderful stones and buildings. The disciples were enthralled with the imposing magnificence of this building, and it was magnificent. Josephus records that some stones were as large as 13 meters long and 6 meters tall, weighing as much 628 tons, while most were about 28 tons. Jesus was not so enthralled. The temple could almost be considered a sign of the current state of Judaism. Outwardly, it was beautiful, spectacular. People who saw it would be struck by its grandeur and sheer size. Yet inwardly, it had become a place of business. People used it for making money. Leaders who ran it cared about getting their clothes right than they did about the needy sinners' Jesus' ministry too. Instead of believing in the Messiah, they schemed and plotted to kill him and any who stood as evidence of his miracles, such as Lazarus. This is what happens when people try to bridge their own way to God. They strive for doing good deeds but end up falling woefully short because they have no real relationship with God. Would you Jesus condemn your church like he did the temple? Would he condemn you like he did the religious leaders? The fourth one, not one stone will be left upon another. This temple which the people so revered would be completely destroyed in AD 70. This destruction was one of the most catastrophic in all of Jewish history. Zealots had become more and more powerful. A while, horrific governor named Florus had taken over. He did everything in his power to stir up discontent, perhaps hoping a rebellion would cover the shortcomings of his own rule. The Jews revolted and won a few victories until 3 legions were sent by Rome. These marched through the country taking down strongholds. Titus took over for his Vespasian, who became the new emperor. He built siege walls around Jerusalem and waited for starvation to set in. Within months, all food was exhausted, and city dwellers shelled out huge sums for the most disgusting food, such as bird dung. People gnawed on leather to try to subdue their hunger. Finally, the city was broken into and reduced to rubble. Virtually everything inside the walls was ripped down, including the temple. In AD 132, there was another revolt called the Bar Kokhba revolt. His head was the leading rabbi of his day. They actually put him on a white horse and paraded him through the city, saying "son of a star," which was a messianic reference. Fifth one, the signs. The disciples asked Jesus for signs that this would be fulfilled. It seems that their question when all these things are going to fulfill refers to Jesus' second coming, which would be the culmination of all these things. Jesus lists out many signs, while many of them were fulfilled at least partially in AD 70. It is clear from verses 24 to 27 that the ultimate fulfillment would be Jesus' second coming, because Jesus describes the first of the signs as the beginning of the birth pangs. We can conclude that this period of turmoil in world history started all the way back in AD 70 and will merrily increase until Jesus' second coming. A woman might experience some birth pangs week before her baby is born. Sometimes they grow more serious and sometimes they lessen again. Finally, in the last day before the birth, they grow steadily more painful until the pain is almost impossible to bear. Then finally the baby is born. That is very much what these signs are like. Basically, they last from the beginning of the church age until the end of it. Sometimes these signs are more evident and sometimes they are less evident. But in general, they would increase, especially towards the end right before Jesus' second coming. Let's take a look at some of the signs. Many will come in my name saying, I am he. Ever since Jesus' ascension, this has been true. Many false prophets and Christ have come and made claims and tried to get a following. It is still happening today in cults across the world. The second one is wars and rumors of wars. These point to the instability of this world. The world is not going to be a paradise prior to Christ's return. Satan and sin still reign. Unlike some people believe, the world is not going to keep getting better and better until Christ's return. The third one we can see, nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. This has happened throughout the history of the world. In the 1900s, nationalism was in fever pitch, was occurred on a global scale never seen before. The fourth one is earthquakes and famines. All the way back in Genesis, we see the God's curse because of sin includes separation from God, conflict with other people, and an earth that is cursed and will cause problems for people. These things again show instability and the need for divine intervention. No matter how smart people get, they have not learned how to control nature. No matter how advanced the technology is, people have not figured out how to eliminate hunger. The signs show us that the pride of man, which has caused us to believe we cannot do anything. If you can look at Genesis chapter 11 verse 4 is ill placed. What kind of things we can apply from this passage? What do we learn from this? See to it that no one mislead you. We must be wary. The world is filled with false teachers seeking to lead people astray for their own benefit. Do not believe them. Always look to the Bible and ask, what does the Bible say? Do not fall for smooth sounding speech which is contrary to the word of God. The second one is, there are merely the signs. Generally speaking, these things tell us that the world is unstable and Jesus will return. Generally speaking, these signs will increase prior to Jesus' return. At one specific war, earthquake or famine, or even 10 of them, do not necessarily mean that Jesus' return is going to happen within a specific time frame. Remember that in AD 70, many of these signs were happening, and yet we know that Jesus still has not returned almost 2000 years later. Be ready. See verse 9a. I believe that this is the most important principle Jesus wants us to get from this. His coming is imminent. It could be at any time. These signs are happening. Perhaps he gave these general and somewhat vague signs primarily so that we would always be remembered that he is coming back to set all of this right. Are you ready? So in this way, we can learn a lot of things from this passage. We'll meet in next Bible study. God bless you. Thank you.